Andrew Wiggins has been one of my favorite stories in the league these last few seasons. After being drafted number 1 overall, traded to Minnesota, which ultimately culminated in a trade to Golden State years later, after numerous ups and downs, Wiggins became an all-star and one of the most impactful players on a championship team this past season. He deserves way more credit for the way that he revolutionized his game and bought into his role with the Dubs in a way that many people thought was impossible. Without him, the Warriors do not win this past year's title. Let's talk about the transformation of Andrew Wiggins. When Wiggins was drafted number 1 overall to Cleveland and later traded to Minnesota in 2014, expectations were sky high for him right from the get-go. Jonathan Wasserman of Bleacher Report compared him to a blend of Tracy McGrady and Clyde Drexler. NBADraft.net compared him to Vince Carter and Rudy Gay. By the time the draft rolled around, he was considered by most people as the best choice for the number 1 overall pick in the 2014 draft, ahead of fellow prospects Jabari Parker and Joel Embiid, who went number 2 and number 3 in the draft. He was a high flyer with insane potential on both sides of the ball, all the physical tools to be gifted on both sides. In his first year in Minnesota, he had a really solid season, averaging 17 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 2.1 assists on 44% shooting en route to Rookie of the Year. The next season, he broke the 20-point threshold, averaging 20.7 points per game in his sophomore season, and he followed that up in 2017 with a career-high 23.6 points per game on 45.2% shooting, 35.6% from 3, a big year that was followed by an even bigger bag as Wiggins and the Wolves inked a 5-year, $146.5 million contract extension. Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor said following the extension, Andrew is one of the best talents in the NBA, and he has the talent and work ethic to get even better and be a foundation for our franchise for many years, and it certainly seemed that way. Wiggins had become a top 20 scorer in the NBA at just 22 years old. He and second-year big man Karl Anthony Towns, who had just averaged a ridiculous 25.3 points per game, looked to be one of the best young duos in the league. Earlier that offseason, additionally, the Wolves added Jimmy Butler in a trade that set them up to try and compete in the 2017-2018 season. They made the playoffs for the first time in over a decade, and while they lost in the first round, it was an overall pretty successful season. However, Wiggins did not live up to the expectations that ownership and his teammates had for him, and definitely did not live up to the amount of money that he was making that year. He averaged a really disappointing 17.7 points per game on 43.8% shooting, 33.1% from 3, and it even became clear just how poor of a defender he truly was. Wiggins had the worst defensive RPM in the NBA and was named the NBA's worst defender by 538. They found that when Wiggins contested a shot, opponents had a 56.1 effective field goal percentage compared to a 56.4 effective field goal percentage when they shot completely unguarded, meaning that shooting when guarded by Wiggins was basically the same as getting a wide open look. So not only was he not scoring like he used to, he was a traffic cone on defense despite being gifted with countless tools to be a good or even great defender. His play was a catalyst for Jimmy Butler requesting a trade, and his contract quickly became one of the worst in the league. The Wolves traded Butler next season, but Wiggins didn't improve. He still wasn't playing defense and averaged just 18.1 points per game on a career-low 41.2% shooting. The next year, he averaged 22.4 through 42 games and showed some signs of improvement, especially in the area of shot selection for the Timberwolves, ultimately before they decided to pull the plug on the A-Wiggs experiment and dealt him to Golden State for D'Angelo Russell, a friend of Karl Anthony Towns, and a recent All-Star. Wiggins was sent to Golden State as a negative asset, a player with a contract that was seen as one of the worst in the league. Wiggins had an up and down end to the year, but began to show flashes of the player he could be for the Warriors in 2020-2021. He scored 18.6 points per game and posted career highs with 47.7 field goal percentage and 38 three-point percentage as he committed much more to becoming a catch-and-shoot player on the perimeter, with 75% of his looks from beyond coming through that avenue. He attacked closeouts well too, showed off his potential as a cutter, and committed to playing his role especially defensively. Wiggins was graded as a neutral to slightly positive defender this season by 538, which isn't anything special, but was a massive improvement from the his defense is equal to a wide open shot days. The Warriors would miss the playoffs, but Wiggins seemed to be flipping a switch in this new situation. Then it all clicked in 2021-2022. Wiggins averaged 17.2 points per game on 46.6% shooting from the field, and a career-high 39.3% from three, thriving as a catch-and-shoot threat on the perimeter, a smart cutter, and a phenomenal off-ball player. He also completed his defensive transformation. He became one of the most ferocious wing defenders in the league over the course of this past year. He was consistently attentive and locked in on that end, citing how Draymond, Clay, Steph, Iguodala, and the other vets challenged him to become a player that opposing scorers feared. He posted a 1.9 defensive Raptor, good for 16th in the league amongst all players that played over 2,000 minutes. The Warriors had a 116.4 defensive rating without Andrew Wiggins on the court, and a 106.5 defensive rating with Wiggins on the court, a 10-point improvement. This elite 3-and-D play earned him an all-star starter nod in the Western Conference, giving him his first appearance of his career. Regardless of not if you believe he should have been in the All-Star game, he earned that. He earned his way onto that team and earned the respect of those around him, those who choose the All-Stars. And then we get to the playoffs, where Wiggins showed just how vital he was to Golden State, especially in the conference finals and the NBA finals. In the conference finals, Steve Kerr made a conscious effort to match Wiggs' minutes with Luka's as he took on the role of primary defender for one of the best offensive players in the world and one of the best perimeter players, especially at this young age, that we've ever seen. When Wiggins guarded Luka in the Western Conference Finals, Luka scored 13 less points per game than average per 100 possessions and was limited to just 13 assists and 11 turnovers. Luka was still great, but Wiggins slowed him down as best as you possibly can. He did this while averaging 18.6 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, and 2.8 assists, and led the Warriors in plus-minus with a plus 55 over the course of the series. He made a legitimate case for Western Conference Finals MVP, ultimately given to his teammate Steph Curry. Then we get to the finals, where he was given the task of stopping Jason Tatum, an emerging superstar and top 10 player in the league. Wiggins held Tatum to just 37.5% shooting when matched up with him over the course of the finals, and turned him into a non-factor at times in the series. He was also vital to the Warriors flipping the script when they went down 2-1 to Boston. The Warriors were struggling to grab boards and losing by a big margin in that column, and Steve Kerr asked Andrew Wiggins to go get more boards to help reverse that advantage, so he did. Wiggs scooped up 16 boards in Game 4 to go with 17 points, and 13 boards in Game 5 to go along with 26 points. He was absolutely incredible. He immediately flipped the switch. Steve Kerr said, go get boards, and he grabbed 29 in 2 games. And then in the closeout Game 6, he puts up 18 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, 4 steals, and 3 blocks, a near 5x5 en route to the Dubs lifting their 4th title in the last 8 years. As Steve Kerr put it, we wouldn't have won without Andrew Wiggins, and they don't. His lockdown defense, his elite rebounding, and his timely scoring was vital to the Dubs' success. He was a Swiss Army knife that gave Boston more problems than they could solve over the course of a series. And that's why I love his story. Wiggins has gone from being a one-dimensional player, once labeled as a bust and a negative asset, to a basketball chameleon. A player willing to play whatever role his team needs him to in order to win. He was the catalyst for the continuation of one of the greatest dynasties in modern sports. The Maple Mamba was doubted by a lot of people, but now he is an NBA All-Star and he is an NBA champion, now and forever. No one can ever take that away from him. Regardless of what people said about him in the past, how he played in the past, all of the doubters, Andrew Wiggins has absolutely revolutionized his game and the way that people look at him in the modern NBA. He is one of the most important players on one of the best teams in the league, and Andrew Wiggins has fully transformed himself to become the player that many people once thought he could be. So shout to Andrew Wiggins. I appreciate y'all watching. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe. Helps me out a ton. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.